Visiting hours are over for the day. You'll have to come back tomorrow. Did you not hear me? Visiting hours are over. You're one of my students, aren't you? In that larger lecture style class. Yeah. All right. Well, let's hear it. What would you like from me? Would you like to have an extension on a project that you don't care about and so you haven't done it yet? Or maybe you didn't study for a test and so you got bad marks and now you're here to try to convince me that your great-great-great-grandmother's familiar died on that day and so you need a retake. What exactly would you like to ask of me? What? What? Really? You're here because you actually like my class? Really? Well, that doesn't happen very often. I can tell you that there are not too many elves who think that it's important to study the complexities of the fascinating race of humans. Human studies is not a very popular profession. Not a very popular department in the academy. As you can see, they have me shoved back here in the smallest and the darkest of the offices because they don't really think that anybody cares about human studies. And to be fair, most people don't. But you do, huh? Really? You know, it's been a long time since I've met a student who actually shares the love of human studies like me. Yeah. So what can I do for you today? What would you like? You'd like to know more about humans? Now you're just in my Human Studies 101, right? The required class for everybody. Yeah, that's it's actually the only human studies class on campus right now because, like I said, nobody else cares to take human studies 201, so they canceled it. But I have quite a lot of material for a 201 class that is quite fascinating. Yes, humans are such an interesting race. You know, their lifespans are so tiny, just infinitesimal compared to the lifespan of us elves. And yet they place so much importance on so many things that don't really matter. It's fascinating. These foolish, primitive creatures are quite interesting to study, if you ask me. And apparently you think so too, huh? Wonderful. Well, sure, yes. Why don't you have a seat? I would love to discuss humans a bit more. Now, is there any one particular thing, sort of an area of study that you would like to know more about? Sure. The lifestyle of humans. Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, but before we get to the lifestyle, we need to talk a little bit more about what makes the human lifestyle so different from the elves. Like I said, they live so much shorter lives than us. In fact, did you know that humans are considered adults once they reach the age of 18? I know. That's still such a baby in elf years. I mean, even I'm one of the youngest professors here, you know, and I still get looked down on quite a bit for being less than 150 and being a professor. And yet, humans are considered adults, able to make decisions about their entire lives starting at age 18. Crazy. Crazy, just to think about. You know, so I have the hypothesis that many of the lifestyle choices that they make, it really is just a reflection of the fact that they have such small, insignificant lives. I mean, really, they have less than 100 years, many of them quite a few less than 100 years, to make any sort of impact on this world. And so they do things very intensely. Let's just say that. Like, for example, their food. Now, they see food not just as sustenance. I mean, yes, it is sustenance. They require food just like you and me. But they see food as something to be made more complicated than it needs to be. In fact, they are constantly adding more ingredients to food that make the food less nutritious. Yes, they add all of these bad things to food in order to make it more enjoyable. But really, it makes it less good for them. And yet that's the way that they prefer it, because they want to enjoy it instead of just, seeing it as what we need, like we elves do. Quite fascinating, especially cheese. Now, I have it on very good authority that if you ever wish to capture a human, all you must do is make a trap and put cheese as the bait. They're obsessed with it. It's incredible. They add cheese to almost everything. Even things that really don't need cheese, they put cheese on it. And there's all different kinds of cheese. There's soft cheese, there's hard cheese, there's grated cheese, there's shredded cheese, all kinds of cheese. There's melted cheese. They just really, really like cheese. So, if ever you are in a position where you need to capture a human, which I hope you're not, but if you are, use cheese as the bait. That's it, cheese. Oh, here's another thing. When it comes to drinking, beverages like mead or wine or ale or things like that, humans have a very, very low tolerance for substances like that. 5 or 6 drinks is enough to make any of them completely different people sometimes. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. If we had an elf that could only handle 5 or 6 drinks, we would think that they were rather silly, wouldn't we? Something about their metabolism, it works so differently from ours that they are very, very easily affected by beverages. Not as much as gnomes. Gnomes you can get to sing you their whole life story after just a few, but humans are definitely a lower tolerance for alcohol than us elves, that's for sure. Now, as far as the way that they actually live their lives, one of the strangest things about humans that I really am still researching why this is. I've spent almost my whole life studying humans, and there are still lots and lots of things that I have to learn, let's just say that. But one of the most fascinating things to me is the fact that humans do not like pointed ears. So, when a human baby is born, their parents actually round off their ears. Yes, it seems like quite a dark and quite painful process, which is why they do it as an infant, so that they don't remember the pain. But it's quite fascinating. Yes, I came across a text at one point. Where was that? Well, I don't remember where, but I've been hypothesizing as to why this is and how exactly they do it. I would think that they probably use something sort of like this. A saw here, and they just sort of saw off the ear, or perhaps maybe it's a bit more finesse, something like this. I'm not sure, but I have a hypothesis that rounding off the ears when they are little, it contributes to the sort of primitiveness of their race. Yeah. Now, one of these days, I keep petitioning the committee of the academy to try to fund an experiment for me. See, I would love to see what would happen to an elf if you sawed off the ears the same way that humans do. It could be quite a fascinating experiment. You see, humans have worse senses than us. They don't hear as well, they don't see as well, they have lower intelligence than us, obviously, and they have less agility than us. And I think that quite a lot of this stems from the rounding of the ears. So I would really, really love to be able to have an experiment where I could, observe people, that we could round off their ears for them and see how it affects their intelligence. I think it would be quite eye-opening. Unfortunately, the council at the academy has refused to fund it for the last 50 years, so, maybe I have it all planned out on how exactly I would do it and everything. I think that it would be, quite a seamless process. Now, they're not convinced that I would find volunteers willing to do that. I suppose that's understandable. Although with proper magic, we would be able to put the ears back, probably. Eventually. But I do want the actual process of rounding the ears to be not magical, because I want to see how it affects the humans. And humans, as we all know, are terrible at magic. That's another thing. It's so strange to me. I mean, I know part of that is because of the Great Separation and taking away all of the magic from, from the humans in general. But even before that, they were rather clumsy when it came to magic. And there were maybe a few people here and there who were good at it, but for the most part, they were, quite abysmal at it. Yeah. And even when they had magic was not taught in their schools. In fact, a human education in general is just something of a puzzle to me. It doesn't seem like they have quite the same level of commitment to education that we elves have. This may also be a reason for their lack of intelligence. Fascinating primitive creatures. Truly fascinating, aren't they? Anyway, here I am. I've just been rambling. Did you say there was something specific? You said lifestyle, right? Of the humans. Yes, of course. Yes. There's quite a lot of lore that the humans believe about the world. It's quite interesting. Quite interesting, the things that they believe to be true. Now, humans also, they sleep. They sleep quite a lot. They spend quite a lot of their time sleeping. In fact, they're so bad at it that humans need to sleep up to 8 to 10 hours a night just to feel fully rested. Now, most of them don't actually get that much sleep, but that's what they need. It's quite strange, really. We elves have evolved in a way that we are quite productive with our sleeping. And so generally, any of us only need like an hour or two. But they waste so much of their lives sleeping. And their lives are so short anyway. This may also be a reason for their lack of intelligence. Mm-hmm. See, I've got all sorts of hypotheses, but unfortunately, because I don't have any humans to test them on, they're just hypotheses for now. Maybe someday the Academy will fund my experiments. One of these days. Maybe. Anyway, they actually believe, where is it? Here it is. They believe that the reason that they sleep is because a strange little man comes into their rooms at night and throws sand in their face. Sand. Really? Yes, that's right. Sand. Of all the things to enchant, why should it be enchanted sand? Quite messy, if you ask me, honestly. Yes, they call him the Sand Man. Quite an unoriginal term. Yes, they're not very original in naming things. That's for sure. In fact, they have another story. It's the villain of the story is a wolf. And the name of the wolf is the Big Bad Wolf. That's his name. Yeah, that's it. No, no other name is ever mentioned. It's just the Big Bad Wolf. They're not very creative. I have a hypothesis that their lack of creativity is also lack of pointed ears. That it all goes back to that rounded ears business when they're babies, you know. I think it really just stunts their growth. Although some of it may also be just because the makeup of their bodies is so different from ours. Oh, yes, where is my chart? Ah, here it is. Now here I have a picture of the human skeleton. As you can see, it is much more dense than an elf skeleton. Yes, their bones are very heavy. Now that does mean that they're a bit hardier than us elves, I guess you could say. But it makes them much clumsier, much more, much less agile, much slower. Yes, poor things. You know, if they had a proper skeleton, perhaps that would help things too. Poor things. Yes. Now, they are a bit stronger than elves. That can be said. Although they're not as strong as the dwarves. You know, in fact, they're not really the most or the best at anything, really. Humans are just very average. Except when it comes to intelligence. I think they're maybe a bit less than average when it comes to intelligence. But who am I to judge? For the very small little lifespans that they have, I suppose it makes sense that they have been so primitive of a species. It really is something that requires more study. And unfortunately, the Academy does not want to fund any expeditions to observe them in their natural habitat either. It's quite sad, really. Quite sad. Oh, here's another thing. Candles. Now, of course, we use candles. We have candles, we have torches, we have all of those sorts of things. But humans need candles and torches to be able to see at night. I know. If they don't have some sort of direct light source, they simply can't see. You know, when we can't see at night, it does, you know, affect the color of items, but we obviously can see in the dark. You know, most other species can see in the dark. We may lose a little bit of detail here and there, especially when it comes to color. But all the important things, depth, value, contrast, things like that, we can still see just fine. We may choose to use candles and torches or magical lights or things like that just for the aesthetic purposes, or just to make sure that, you know, we can still see colors and things. But we don't need it. If I were to blow out this candle and put out my lantern here, we would still be able to see each other. But if we were humans, we would not. They need a light source to be able to see. Quite strange. In fact, according to my research, it seems as though all of their sight is quite dull compared to ours. It seems that they only see colors that are on the light spectrum. I know, tragic. Can you imagine seeing a world so dull like that? Yes, quite sad, quite sad. I have a hypothesis that also is because of the rounded ears. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. It seems as though so many different things are connected to our ears. You know, and that is quite a big difference between humans and elves. That I really think that study of what would happen if we rounded off the ears of elves would just be so enlightening. I mean, really, do you know how challenging it is to have such a passion for a subject that nobody else does, and nobody funds your ideas? It's just, oh well. I suppose that is the burden of us intellectuals, isn't it? That sometimes we will become so passionate about subjects that other people don't think matter. Well, someday they will. Can you imagine if the decrees of the great separation were abolished someday and we could actually live with the humans again? These strange, primitive creatures. We could have so much more information. I would love to actually set up a controlled area for them. Yes, like a little corral or something. I mean, I would create a habitat for them that is, you know, comfortable. It may seem a bit strange that they're not able to roam wherever they want, but they would get used to it. They would get used to it. And the studying that we would be able to do. Research, the advancement of our knowledge of this strange creature, the human. It would be amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, speaking of creatures, that's another one. Another just such a strange thing that these humans do. They have what they call pets. They take animals into their home, and they treat them as lesser beings, as their pets. Now, of course, we have animals that live with us, but they are our familiars. Now, of course, they don't necessarily talk in our language, but we still understand their importance and their intelligence. In fact, many creatures, such as, cats and toads and owls and mice, they have intelligence of a different kind that can be incredibly insightful to those of us who have familiars. Yes, we form a bond with the animals themselves, whereas humans just see them as mindless beasts. Right? Absolutely fascinating. You know, maybe because they keep what they consider primitive animals as pets, maybe that means that they would be okay with me keeping one of them as a pet, seeing as they are so primitive to us. That would be very interesting in order to, study more if I had a human pet. Can you imagine? Oh, goodness. The research that we could do. Although it does seem that humans lack a certain level of knowledge when it comes to how they treat other things versus how they would like to be treated. It's quite strange, really, quite sad. They see differences almost as something to be feared instead of something to be celebrated. Each different humans are so different to each other that, you would think that they would like to learn from each other, but for the most part, they view that as, not a good thing, that there's so much diversity within their own race. Quite sad, really. Maybe that also comes back to the shorter lifespans. Maybe if they were able to get to know each other on a deeper level over hundreds of years, like we're able to, maybe they would think of themselves as, differently. Because really, they may have differences of certain things, but in what matters, they're all quite similar. Just like us, we come from different clans, we have different professions, different interests, but we are all elves, and we all value the same, similar things. you know. And even if there are differences between the clans, we have learned to coexist in a way that has brought about peace. Maybe someday. Maybe the humans just need more time to evolve as a species, you know. Although with as primitive and as violent as they are, I have a hypothesis that their race is not going to last much longer. The grand scheme of things. Tragic, really. You know, maybe if we stepped in more and helped them out for the, you know, the primitive race that they are, maybe we could actually, you know, help them along a little bit to finding more of that peace, that equality amongst themselves. But of course, according to the Great Separation, we're not allowed to. Tragic, really. I mean, I understand why the Great Separation happened, of course. Trusting such a primitive species with the complexities of magic when clearly they aren't able to handle it. It wasn't a great decision on the part of the elves that, you know, originally shared the magic with them. That is very true. It led to many, many problems. But to have to not have any contact with them at all, it's quite sad. Yes. I think that there's quite a lot that we elves could do to help them. You know what I mean? I think they could really benefit from some of our knowledge and wisdom. But alas, it doesn't seem that the Academy or the High Council or anyone actually agrees with me that it would be worth it. Oh well. Oh well. Oh, would you like to see one of my very favorite artifacts from humankind? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. This is a fascinating item, and it's in excellent condition, too. It seems that humans are constantly fearing for their lives. You see, they have a very unfortunate relationship with death. Most of them greatly fear the aspect of, you know, dying. Quite strange, seeing as they have such short lifespans that, you know, to us it's really just a blink of an eye. Well, not a blink of an eye, but yeah, very, very short. But yet they still have such a fear of death that they do everything they possibly can to try not to die. So, when a human child is born, they choose a guardian. Now this soft, cute little animal, I'm told is called a teddy bear. Now the exact translation of this term, teddy, is still greatly debated by the human scholars. Mostly me, I don't know what it means. But it seems as though this creature accompanies a human child to bed every single night and every nap time. They sleep quite a lot, these humans. It's rather strange. And this teddy bear is what they use to fend off negative energies and any sort of dangers of the dark, seeing as they can't see in the dark. They rather fear the dark. And so this teddy bear is a warrior of peace, of tranquility, of a good night's sleep. Yes, quite strange. So a teddy bear like this one is probably quite filled with, sort of negative energy that it has taken away from the human child, that it has protected the human child from. Fascinating, really. The things that they believe. That just a little guardian like this would be enough to fend off anything that might go bump in the night. Right? I know. Quite strange. So they don't believe that animals have any sort of intelligence, and yet they put stock in something like this. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, these humans. But so incredibly fascinating. Just fascinating. Anyway, this is one of my most prized possessions. Also, it is quite squishy and soft. Very soft. I could see that it would be comforting to cuddle with as a child. But to believe that this could actually protect you from anything is rather foolish. Oh well. It is certainly not the most foolish thing that humans do. That is to be sure. You know, it's wonderful to actually have a student who actually cares about human studies like I do. It has been a very, 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 very long time since I have taught a student who actually saw value in my class beyond just what was required of them by the academy to take a class in human studies. So what interests you so much about humans, if you don't mind me asking? There is quite a lot of unknown, isn't there? Yes, the unknown is very enticing to some, to those of us intellectuals. You know, I've mentioned it before, but I do have quite the write-up on this experiment of mine, on having actually the ability to round out an elf's ears. You know, as someone who also is so interested in the unknown, perhaps you would be an excellent candidate for such a prestigious experiment. Well, I know the Academy didn't sanction it. This would just be something, you know, between you and me, as people who appreciate the love, the fascination of human beings. Well, of course I can't do it to myself. I have to observe how the rounding of the ears affects the intelligence of the subject. And if I lose too much of my intelligence, then I wouldn't be able to properly observe it, would I? No. I need a test subject who would allow me to just you know, saw off or cut off those ears. I'll let you choose whether you want me to cut them or saw them off, so that I can really see how it affects your intelligence. And don't worry, I'll put them back once the experiment is over, I promise. Yes, you see, we have the magic to do that. It should be perfectly fine. Yeah, you know, I just need to, come here. Let me just see. I'm sure, I know I'm not going to do it right now. I just want to get a good idea. Well, where are you going? I haven't even told you about the human reproductive process yet. Oh, well. I thought we were really getting somewhere there, but maybe another decade or two. One of these days, I'll be able to actually test my hypothesis. One of these days. One of these